Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Nurse Mark and the Green Nurse Daily Dose of AFA,
where we bring you hope and inspiration for growth and healing so you can start your day off the AFA way. And the AFA way is the most important way to start your day. And Mark,
Yes,
talk about it.
I did. And you need to know that you're absolutely amazing exactly as you are. And we're going to tell you that every morning because you need to be reminded. Stuff happens in life and you might not feel like you're absolutely amazing, but you are. That's the reality. That's the truth. You are absolutely amazing. So we're going to tell you day in, day out. And maybe one day you'll actually believe it.
Yes. One day you may say, oh my gosh, Nurse Mark and Nurse Sherry, they were so right about all that AFA stuff.
I am amazing. Oh, yeah. Yeah. You know what, Sherry? You've said it a few times. You should just get up in the morning, go in, look in the mirror, and say to yourself, I am absolutely fucking amazing. It may feel uncomfortable at first. Continue to do it. You're going to get it. You're going to get it. And you all are absolutely amazing. So here we go. Friday. May 14th, the beautiful spring day.
It is what it is.
It is what it is.
Kind of day, right?
Yeah. Let's do a little daily love.
Let's do some love.
And you know, this is this is another one about good morning, Laura. Good morning, Glenn. This daily love is another one about what you think is what you get, what you think is what you manifest. And I was thinking, you know what? People are probably saying to themselves, oh my God, is it another one where he's going to talk about what you think is what you get? Well, yeah. And I want you to consider this when you're listening to this and you're saying to yourself, wow, another one about what you think is what you get. Why does he keep going on and on and on about this? Consider that you being cranky about it is just your habitual mind saying, I don't want to change. You can't make me change and I'm not going to change. That's all it is. Okay. So we're going to continually remind you that how you think is going to produce what you get in life. It's absolutely cause and effect. That's it. So here we go. You ready? This is
I'm so ready.
And Use Your Inner Power by Emmett Fox. Okay. Thought is destiny. You think and your thoughts materialize as experience, and thus it is. All unknown to yourself as a rule that you are actually weaving the pattern of your own destiny here and now by the way in which you allow yourself to think day by day and all day long. It is altogether in your own hands. Nobody but yourself can keep you down. Nobody else can involve you in difficulty or limitation. Neither parents, nor wives, nor husbands, nor employers, nor neighbors, nor poverty, nor ignorance, nor any power whatever can keep you out of your own when once you have learned how to think.
Boom. Right. That's that's really powerful. And it's really interesting, Mark, how awesome that is, because the power of thought. And then it's a reminder. Okay. I want everyone to be reminded how our minds can play tricks on us.
Oh.
Right. So you just talked about they, them, right? The people in our lives, the situations, the ignorance, the this, the that, the other thing. So this is just really, this kind of ties into it, because yesterday I was seeing a couple of posts of fuck what they think, right? I'm like, yeah, fuck what they think. I was getting all pumped up. Yeah. And then I was like, who's them? Who's they? That's right. I'm like, who are they? Who are they? Fuck what they think. Who are they?
Listen, if you're even commenting on what they think, you're worried about what they think. Like that post in and of itself is confirmation that you do care what those other people think, because you have to go out of your way to actually make that statement that is, you know.
So this is the interesting thing. So this has to do with thoughts and thinking. So think about they're the thoughts in your head that have names, faces, energies, traumas that are associated with the them concept. So think about it, that trauma response to past experiences. Do they really care? Nope, they don't.
No.
Do they really think about you and what you're doing? Do they spend their precious energy contemplating on you? And the answer is no, they don't, because all the stories we create about them and what they are doing, what they are thinking, what they're feeling, like Mark said, is just made up.
It's made up. We don't know. You never know what somebody's thinking. And if you do, oh my gosh, I want to meet you because you are absolutely a completely unique individual. Nobody knows what's going on in anybody else's head. We just make up stories about what we think it is, and it fits our narrative of stuff that happened in the past, people who looked like them, experience you may have had with them. Like, it's all just made up stuff. So
yeah,
be careful
I agree.
what you think.
Be careful what you think. And this actually too, this kind of ties into today's topic. And the reason why is because it has to do with judgment and about using cannabis and about using different forms of cannabis, using cannabis that's off the beaten path, that's new to people. And so we're going to be talking about concentrates, right?
Oh, good.
Think about what's a concentrate. They take this flower, this is cannabis flower, a lot of it, right? So they equivalent masses of the active constituents of the plant, lots of the plant material, and they extract it into small, like concentrated, smaller quantities that have higher potent doses.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. That's exactly right.
So it's got, so I'm going to show you some of them too. So the interesting thing about concentrates is why would it give some people appeal over the raw flowers, right? So we have all these raw flowers in terms of purity, potency, quality, right? So the interesting thing is that's really, really much stronger than the cannabis flower. And it's made in variety of different extraction processes. And we're going to talk about that. So I want to show you really quickly a couple. So concentrates, we're going to go through all of them. An example of a concentrate are cartridges, right? This is just a large amount. This is Delta 8 and this is CBD. Okay. So these are concentrated versions of this, which is cool. Then they take it even further. So this is actually diluted. They take it even further. So here's a CBG concentrate that was made from hemp flower. Wait, do you see how beautiful this is?
Oh, yeah.
So this can be used in a variety of different ways. It's a concentrate that I can use to dab. I can actually put it in butter or olive oil. So I can actually turn this into a food to eat, an additional thing that's to supplement.
Oh, yeah.
And we talk about CBG all the time. But CBG is a great, great mother cannabinoid that is non-impairing, that affects cannabinoid receptors in a way that works on so many different conditions without feeling impaired.
Right.
So let me show you a couple others, and then we're going to talk about each one of them. So this one here is Banana OG. This here is another concentrate. You can see right here. Really, you can see the different colors, the different textures, and we're going to get into that in a minute. And so this concentrate is a really good one for me for pain. Do I do all of these concentrates all day, every day? The answer is no. Right? The answer is I pay attention to my body. I ask myself critical questions. I look at my day. What's my day going to be like? And what is the most appropriate cannabinoid for this moment in time based on what's going on with me and what I need to do later in the daytime. So back to concentrates, Mark.
Yeah.
How are they made?
Ooh. Oh, Sherry, how are they made? They're extracted from the plant, right? Yeah. So so different extraction methods pull all of the parts from the plant, hopefully. Some are more efficient than others at doing it. And so there are a lot of different ways to extract from the plant. So the first one, solvent-based, right? So hydrocarbon extraction. So butane and propane are two efficient methods of doing it, and are they produce a pretty high quality product. The problem is that those are volatile substances, right? So when you go to spin up an extraction facility, you have to go through a lot of permitting processes, with the local fire department and all these different entities, because it's flammable. It's highly flammable.
Right.
So you have to be really intentional when you're doing your design, right? So, yeah. So, although it's really good, it's not utilized. It's not the primary method that is used for extraction, right? Hydrocarbon extraction.
Yep. Butane hash oil. So it was interesting.
Yeah.
And when I started, it was introduced to concentrates. That's what I was introduced to. I was introduced to butane hash oil and shatter. And shatter is like a really, really thin concentrated. It almost looks like glass that you dab. So interesting. Next one, Mark, is an alcohol extraction.
Yeah. And that's utilized quite a bit because this is efficient, Part of the problem is an extraction, Sherry, is if you're doing it, if you're doing it at home, for low volume, then some of these methodologies work really well.
Yeah.
But if you're doing it commercially, some of these methodologies don't produce enough per hour to make them viable. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
In other words, the throughput of being able to put a plant in one end and getting an extract out the other, each one of these methodologies is different. So, you have to take that into consideration. They do in the commercial facilities, but alcohol extraction, ethanol, that's a really good way to extract from the plant. Yep.
Because cannabinoids and cannabinoids are not water soluble, right? So it extracts into fat and extracts into alcohol. And so there's 4 different grades of alcohol.
Right.
And there's a couple of these solvents that are alcohol based, methanol and toluene. And so basically they have stated that these are not to be used. They're not using them. And because they cause some optical nerve diseases and seizures. So you have to think about when you're extracting these things, it is a chemical reaction. It is a process. Things change. And they can affect our bodies in different ways.
Sure they can.
So the other thing too is they wanted to avoid acetone and isopropyl alcohol. So when people are at home, they think of the Rick Simpson oil, the full extract cannabis oil. A lot of people that are making these at home are using grain alcohol, so food grade alcohol. I've actually seen people use tequila. If you think about it, they're making infused alcoholic beverages. So with the alcohol extraction, they're extracting all the cannabinoids and they're reducing the alcohol. They're letting it burn off or evaporate to get that concentrated oil.
And, commercially, I asked this question of someone who has been in the extraction space for many years at the, PhD top level. And I asked this question a couple of years ago. I said, what's the most preferred, method for people who are into extraction? Like most preferred being what's going to give you the best product out the other end? And they said ethanol.
Yeah.
Although we're going to talk about supercritical CO2, which is the most commonly used, but we'll talk about that. But a PhD in extraction said ethanol was the best.
So these are solvent extractions, because then we're going to talk about solventless. So these are solvent extractions based on using solvents. Ethanol is the most favorable.
Yep. So let's talk about supercritical fluid extraction.
CO2 extraction.
Yeah.
So it separates
CO2.
Right. So it separates the cannabinoids and the terpenes by the aid of what? Supercritical fluids.
Right. Yeah. They are chilled to a certain temperature, and that's what allows for this extraction. So this is probably the most commonly used methodology commercially. And it's because it's just, you can roll a machine into any space, plug it in and start extracting. I mean, it's really like that. You don't need special permitting because it's not, flammable, and you can literally just spin up an extraction facility pretty darn quickly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely. Yep. Now there's something else that was interesting that I actually, didn't know about. So this is, I think, because what they're doing in bigger companies, they're doing these, they're really pulling the plant apart. So there's this R134A terpene wash. Has this big, long name, but basically the bottom line is very similar to CO2 extraction. And it goes through this dual solvent wash. So they do a couple of different things to get there. And it produces a full spectrum post-winterized extract, isolating the terpenes, isolating the live resins, and all of the different cannabinoids.
Yeah.
And so this too is, they're finding it simple to use. It's safe. It's inexpensive.
And depending on, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay. And they can do large amounts. So that's the thing. You think about all the cannabis, they get pounds and pounds and pounds of cannabis.
Yeah.
They're not extracting in a magic butter machine.
Right. So that goes back to what I was talking about earlier, and that's throughput, right? How much can you do in an hour? So if you're in a commercial environment, you want to be able to produce a high quality product in as much of it in an hour as you can. So part of the issue is in the extraction world is that terpenes are pretty volatile, right? And the acidic cannabinoids are volatile. So when you go through the extraction process, a lot of times they don't make it. Like they're just dissipated. They don't make it through. So you end up with a product that's not completely full plant anymore at the end of the extraction process. So some extraction processes are better than others at pulling these things through at the, to the end finished product. And so it's always a game of how can we make the technology better so that we get everything that's in the plant, because that's the goal. We know that the magic is in all of those things together.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then the other thing too, when you're using solvents to extract cannabinoids, you need to think about residual solvents. So they want to get rid of as much of the solvent as possible, because that's when we do lab testing. The certificate of analysis is looking at residual solvents.
Always.
And so residual solvents may pose a health risk. And, and the thing, extraction companies, they do testing. There's this headspace gas chromatography, mass spectroscopy. So they run checks for solvents, impurities, and other residues. They want to get it as clean as possible because we're putting it into our body. It just makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
So what's the better choice, Mark? We're going to get down to another method of extraction.
Well,
if you don't want to use
everybody's got their opinion on this.
I know.
And I know you're going to say that solventless is the best.
I know.
My opinion is, if you're doing the extraction correctly, they're all safe. And so, the testing, of course, is always the most critical thing. The post-production testing of the product and making sure that there are no residual solvents. You have to test anyway, because, if there were any pesticides in the ground or heavy metals or anything, they're going to be leached up into the plant. So testing is going to take place, whether it's solventless or not. So you always have testing. So
okay. So I'm a little bit biased. I like the solventless, but however, I do want to let you all know, and trust me, I don't give up the shatter, the batter, the BHO, the vape cartridges, the all of these different things that are extracted with solvents. I still use them. So, but I'm not going to lie. My favorite is solventless. It's just kind of fun. And it's just a different way of using cannabis, about extracting. And so with solventless, they often use heat, pressure, filtration to extract the cannabinoids and terpenes from the plant. The issue is it takes a lot more time, and it takes a lot of effort. But the interesting thing is it's clean. It's really clean. And they don't, they still have to test. It's just another way of extracting. I just like it. I like it. But the oldest way,
I said, everybody's got their favorite
method.
way. Everybody has their opinion.
Yeah.
Yep.
So hash is the oldest known cannabis concentrate. So I'm going to show you guys something. I have a big ball. This here is Keef that has started to be made into a hash ball. So I got this as a gift from a caregiver, right? And so Keef is, made dry sift Keef is made by sieving the fresh flower. So you have all this fresh flower. And what they're doing is they're separating the Keef from the plant matter, all those trichomes. So
Right.
It can be hand shaken or mechanically agitated over these mesh screens. I have a jar here somewhere in my collection. And so it's basically the cool thing about this Keef, this powder, it can be added to cannabis joints, edibles. It can be shaped into hash for dabbing, and it can be used in food. You can actually use it in food. There's a lot of people that will take Keef and they'll actually put it in their cookies or their baked goods. Just another way of getting the cannabinoids in. So the interesting thing too is that there's a lot of different ways to make hash. So hand pressed, water, and ice.
Yeah.
Right.
A lot of different ways to do it.
Yeah. So one of the ways, and it's funny, I tried this in my experimenting days. I tried making both ice water hash and bubble hash. And let me just tell you, in my kitchen,
how'd it go?
I made a mess. It was horrible.
Yeah.
It didn't go very well.
It can go sideways pretty quick.
It went very sideways. My kitchen was a disaster. There was water everywhere. There was ice everywhere. Well, then again, I was a newbie, but I wanted to know what I didn't want to do. So I had to experience a lot of what I didn't know to figure out what I wanted to do and how I wanted to work.
The only way.
Yeah. So ice water hash, what it does is it's water-based hash extracts using ice, water, agitation, filtration bags, and also these various mesh screens to separate the trichomes from the raw cannabis material. So you can just imagine, okay, I had this big machine. It looked like a washing machine that I borrowed from someone in the community. And so I have this washing machine in my kitchen with the hose going and these buckets of water and this ice and these screens. And, literally what I got out of the whole process.
Yeah.
This little tiny
That's not great throughput, right? Yeah.
No, it was an ounce.
But
it was super clean. So I had an ounce. It was, and then cannabis was everywhere. So I just have to laugh, but I did try it. But the interesting thing is, why does it work? It works because cannabinoids are not water soluble.
Right.
So a lot of times what extractors do is, and they'll take the buds and they'll freeze them. Right. So if you freeze your cannabis, the trichomes break off easier.
Right.
Really interesting. So they're able to, do the next process. Yeah.
And then you move on to freeze-dried hash. Yeah. So a small percentage of manufacturers are using freeze dryers to preserve their hash from degrading and losing potency, right, over time, because we know that, the cannabis plant and extracts, as they degrade, will chemically alter. So, freeze drying the hash reduces exposure to air and moisture that can affect the quality, aroma, and flavor of the hash.
Right.
Yeah. What about
one
rosin?
of my? I like rosin. Rosin's kind of fun. Whenever I saw a rosin press, I was like, "Whoa, wow, this is so cool!" And then I wanted to get one. And then I was like, "Oh no, I don't want to get one of those. It's just another thing in my house." But there's people that have them in the community. So a lot of these events that we go to, people will have these big giant rosin presses, and what they are is they look like machines that like squish. So it's like you have these plates, and it's pressure and heat that you squish. And then all of the oil comes seeping out, and then they take that oil. It's really great. It's one of my favorites. So heat and pressure applied to the cannabis flower, keef, or trim, and these trichomes are squeezed out into the sappy golden amber hued resin. And it also depends upon the amount of the plant and the type of the plant for the color that it'll be. So there's a ton of these different types of countertop rosin presses that are on the market. There's home versions and there's industrial versions.
Right.
And so the other thing that's interesting, there's just a lot, and then we're going to get on what's in the market today. So the rosin has a shatter-like consistency, but it can be manufactured into a variety of textures that resemble wax, butter, and crumble. And so when we hear all of these different names, it's just the amount of heat and the way that they were making it that determines the consistency, which is really interesting. So rosin, I know. Yeah. It's like, so just adding a little heat, a little agitation, right? So the whipped rosin, all this rosin can look like frosting. It can look like
Mhm.
butter. It can look like sand. It can look like crystals. And it, you know, it ranges in different consistencies. Sticky,
Yeah.
I've seen it look like stretch. You know, you
Mhm.
see the, you know, the goo. It's really,
Yep. And sometimes it's crumbly, right?
yeah.
Yeah. So what is on the market today, Cher?
Okay, so there's a
What are we
lot that's
looking
on the
at?
market. All right, I'll start with the S's.
Okay.
Sauce. So
Yeah.
the S's sauce is a mixture of THCA crystallites with terpene sauce. It's thicker, it's stickier, it's more viscous in temperature than sugar. It has a more uniform and crystalline structure. So this here, this CBG, they consider this to be sauce.
Mhm.
Okay, it's kind of saucy looking, right?
Mhm.
Really interesting, and it's very crystalline. It's gooey, smells good, and it
Mhm.
works easy when you're using it.
Very
And
nice.
sugar. So then we have sugar, similar to sauce, but more of like, it's more of a sugary, you know, like wet sugar. You know, when you get
Yeah.
sugar wet, it's
Yep.
kind of it has that type of consistency, but also has like kind of like the granules of the
Mhm.
sugar.
Mhm. And then, the next one is one we've already talked about, rosin. So it's
Right.
solventless, shatter-like concentrate made from heating and pressing the dried flower, hash, or keef together.
Yep.
And then live rosin, right? Again, solventless, made from pressing bubble hash that was derived from freshly frozen flour.
Right. So
Jared,
this is really cool
your
too.
faves, right?
It's one of my favorites, and you can feel every cell in your body coming alive. So they take the plant fresh out of the ground, they stick it in the freezer to
Mhm.
freeze it. They have all these trichomes that get cold, and they fall off, and then they take it and make bubble hash out of it, and then
Mhm.
they squeeze it. So they have, it's
Mhm.
just really pressing bubble hash. So taking the hash and actually pressing it in the press. It's really, it feels alive. It's like raw juicing, except for
Mhm.
in a concentrated form. If that makes sense. I know
What
it's
about
so
live
it's
resin?
so here's the thing with live resin, right? It's
Mhm.
solvent based,
Mhm.
usually, butane hash oil. It
Yep.
has a, it's, so what is it they do too is they flash freeze, same thing, the whole cannabis flower. So they actually let the plant cure, right?
Yep.
They let it cure, they flash freeze it, they extract it using the same type of extraction like the BHO. So the
Mhm.
difference between rosin and resin is one of them, live rosin, hasn't been cured. It's right out of the ground, where
Yep.
live resin has been. It's
Right. It's
interesting.
been extracted. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So then we come to batter. It's whipped under heat with a terpene oil layer, and that creates a workable cake batter like texture.
Yeah. And then butter. It's whipped up post purge. So purge is getting rid of the stuff that doesn't belong there,
Mhm.
resulting in a consistency that's easily workable. And butter is more stable than crumble. And
Which is
crumble
the
is the
next
next
thing, right?
one. Yeah.
Yeah, batter crumble. It's dried oil with a crumbly honeycomb consistency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we just talked about both of the hashes. There's hash
Yeah.
that's compressed keef into a puck or a block that I just showed
Mhm.
you. And then
Right.
there's bubble hash that uses water, ice, mesh screens to extract the trichomes into a paste-like consistency. And I've actually seen bubble hash be more of like I would say like I don't know what I would call it, but it's a consistency that can actually be, you can hold it in your hand. I've seen CBG bubble hash
Mhm.
actually be not wet, not, I don't know how to explain it, like sand, kind of like
Yeah.
sand that moldy sand that you can
Mhm.
actually play with. Anyways.
Right. And then we have ice wax, and that's similar. It's created by using water, ice, and mesh screens to extract the trichomes into a fine, grainy, sand-like texture. A lot of times, ice is cooling, chilling is part of the process, right? With CO2 extraction, you have winterization. After you have extracted, you have this process called winterization, which you need to put the product into a very cold freezer, and then the waxes solidify, and then you can scrape them off. And so it's just another method of pulling stuff out that you don't want to have in the finished product, right?
Right.
So we have this ice wax, and it's similar, using water, ice, and mesh screens. And then you get dry sift, Sherry. What's that all about?
Dry sift, which is kind of cool. I've actually done that before. I actually have a jar that does it, so you can do it in even small amounts. So it uses these fine mesh screens, and you sift the dry flowers and you separate the trichome heads and from the plant material, and that's what's known as keef. Right? I showed you that little block of keef that was made into almost like a hash puck, but that we were able to press it together because it was really sticky. And I like to use keef, like I said, in cooking. Sometimes putting it on my flour, on my little bong. Yeah, so there's a lot of different ways that you can use it. It's another way of getting the cannabinoids in.
Nice. Then we have wax, and that's just a concentrate whipped in the purging process. Yep.
And then we talked about shatter is generally made using butane hash oil. So it has that golden to amber colored concentrate. So it's made with the solvent, and it produces like this very translucent. It looks just like glass, and it's very, very brittle. I mean, I've seen it break apart like a piece of glass. It was like, whoa, that's so wild how this can be made, and it's cannabis,
Exactly. And then of course you have a distillate. It's when you expose a winterized and decarboxylated extract to heat and vacuum, and it's commonly used as a base for most edibles in vape cartridges. So that goes through the distillation process. It's another chemical process. Absolutely.
And then we have the crystalline. The crystalline is those isolated cannabinoids in their pure structure. We've CBD isolate can be very crystalline looking. It's very white. So Mark, what have you done for concentrates?
Sherry, I've used concentrates mostly for edibles.
There you go.
So
that's great.
Edibles are my jam. That's my preferred method, and so I've used concentrates in creating edibles, and love it.
That's great. Yep. So I've used So I've used a couple of different things. So if I'm going to dab, I like the live rosin. I like the bubble hash, or I like the fresh squeezed rosin. And like I said, I don't dab every day, but when I do, there's a reason and there's an intention behind it, whether it be to, manage pain, decrease nausea, or even to, help me to create my dendrites in my brain. I can be creative. And then the same for cooking. I like to use the ethanol extract, the full extract cannabis oil, or the Rick Simpson oil to make food with. Keef, distillate, and shatter. Shatter is a really cheap way of making even butters. You can take a gram of shatter that tests at 70%, that's 700 milligrams of THC. You can put it in a pound of butter, do the math, and then you'd be able to really dose out in more of an accurate way than it would be if you were using the flour, which is really interesting. Same thing with distillate.
I prefer it. So wrapping it up, baby.
Wrapping it
9 a.m. today. What do we got?
9 a.m. today. Well, we're going to continue this high vibe talk. And we're doing Frequency Friday. So we're going to be talking about energy. We're going to be talking about energy healing, and specifically this little HEALY device, which is a microcurrent vibrational frequency machine that actually works on our bioenergetic bodies, our spirits, our mental, emotional bodies, our auras, and provides healing vibrations, frequency to ourselves. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, and we're going to let you all have an amazing experience. We're going to actually have the HEALY machine vibing. So anyone that comes into the group, you will be able to experience these frequencies with us. It's going to be really fun.
Check it out, folks. Check it out.
It's Monday, what do we got going on Monday, Nurse Mark?
What's that?
Monday, we got something going on.
Oh, we have our mentoring. Oh, we have our mentoring group, our mastermind group on Monday evening.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one. Loving that.
Yeah, it's really good. It's just about educating, bringing people, it's about personal and professional development as you enter into the cannabis space, whether you are a health professional or a coach or a nurse.
Wherever you
are. I mean, Mark has been in the space for a while. I've been in the space for a while, and we want to educate more people to get out there and talk about cannabis as medicine and how it can truly. Exactly.
All right. So thank you, folks. Everybody who stopped by.
Yeah.
You know, it's so good to see you show up in the morning. You really do make my day absolutely fucking amazing. You really do. And thank you for that. So my AFA day has begun. I hope you have one too. You get it. You understand. You are absolutely amazing. And Sherry, thanks as always for the amazing partnership. And
Thank you.
What's it all about?
It is all about living your best life, helping others do the same, stay elevated, stay lifted. It's about decreasing stigma around what it means to feel good and be high.
Yes.
Hope, inspiration, growth, and healing. Happy Friday.
Friday. See you at 9 a.m., folks. All right.